Hello Outside Lives, I'm Ali, a sculpture artist, and I run curiousarty.com, so please check out my website and social media. So today we're going to make a head full of ideas. Can you fill your head with random acts of kindness, art challenges, ideas, whatever you can think of? You could make this for yourself, for your family, or in a classroom or community group setting. If you're young, you're going to need a little bit of help with this. So what do we need? First things we need are 2 pieces of A4 coloured card, 2 different colours. I use 160 GSM. It's about the thickness of a Christmas card. You don't want it too thick. So we need 2 sheets of that and 1 sheet of coloured paper. Alright, normal thickness, any colour. I'm using blue. This is for the tongue, so I'm going to have a blue tongue. If you haven't got any coloured paper, just use white paper and you can decorate it. So that's the first thing. Secondly, really important, we need a bit of recycling. Old Tetra Pak, could be a sort of square one or this kind rectangular. Don't panic if you don't have one of these, alright, it doesn't have to be exact. So you could use any small cardboard box. I made one here from the corner of a cereal packet. Have a root around in your cupboards, see what you can find, but essentially any small box. But I'm going to use a Tetra Pak, and that's because I'm going to cut the bottom off it a little bit later. So we're going to use the bottom half of the Tetra Pak. Top half, if you want to keep it, you'll find it in another workshop. Next thing we need, scrap paper, a coloured paper, anything. I cut down, I love old magazines and looking through them and finding lots of different interesting patterns. So you don't need to buy fancy pattern paper. You can find lots of great patterns using recycled material. So I have boxes that I keep of bits of scraps. I've got little bits of straw in there, bits of gold, whatever, and these come in really handy when I'm making things. And because of those, if you've got any of these, what would be really handy as well is any sort of hole punchers or these, you know, funny kids scissors with the wavy edges and things like that. They're really handy, but don't worry if you haven't. You can just cut shapes out as well by hand. So in order to make it, what's really handy is a ruler, pencil, felt tip pen, a craft knife if you've got one is very handy. If you don't, a little round head screwdriver or a bradawl is handy, as well as some really sharp little scissors, but I'm just going to use some big scissors there. Rubber, handy, glue stick, and if you've got some stronger glue as well, that is quite handy too. First thing I'm going to do is take one of my A4 pieces of card. I'm going to use the yellow one, that's going to be my face. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half, just like a Christmas card. And I want quite a sharp line along the middle there, along the fold. And then when I've done that, I'm going to do this in pen just so that you can see this. Using the folded side, adults, kids don't always get this, that they have to draw from the folded side, so just check that. Going out from the folded side, and I'm drawing a kind of half an egg, half a face shape. Once I've done that, I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to make sure that folds in the middle, so I've done it on the right side, and I'm going to cut that out. Keep the extra bit for later, it's quite handy. I'm just going to cut off here the pen marks because I don't really like those. Again, don't worry too much about the shape, and also use your imagination. I am doing a person shaped face here, but you could do a dog, an elephant, an octopus, whatever you like. Okay, so I've got my face shape, and then what I'm going to do now is cut out the mouth. So I'm going to go from the bottom of the face shape up about 6 centimetres, okay, and then I'm going to come down 1.5 centimetres. So 6 is about the maximum, 7, you don't really want the mouth any further up than that. And then what I'm going to do is going to make a little dot 3 centimetres either side. Again, this doesn't have to be too exact. And I'm going to make myself a little mouth shape. And what I'm going to do is fold it and cut that out. I'm going to use the other side. I've got myself a little mouth shape, and this is the bit where the tongue is going to come out when we've finished. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to put that to one side for a moment, and I'm going to make the box that goes on the back. This is the sort of little mechanics of it. It's where our tongue sits, and that enables us to pull it out there. So that's what we're going to make now. And to do that, we're going to use our Tetra Pak. So I'm going to get my Tetra Pak and I'm going to cut it down 10 centimetres, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to measure around, blah blah. So if I make the first line, I'm kind of going to go around the corners, which is going to make my life a bit easier, because then I can just measure the edges there. Now, this is one of the bits we have to be a bit careful about, and this is where we might need some adult help. I am going to use my craft knife, which is pretty sharp, but it does make the job really easy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to push it in and just carefully go around till I have a nice little bottom of the box. If you don't have a craft knife, or that sort of worries you a little bit because it's very sharp, you can do it if you've got some sharp pointed scissors. Just by sticking them in, you can make yourself a little hole and cut round there. It takes a little bit more time, but it's also possible. Okay, so we're going to end up with our bottom of the Tetra Pak. It's about 10 centimetres. Again, don't worry too much, that's alright. And we're going to make ourselves a mouth shape on there. So, we've gone up, wrong side. We're going to go up there about 3 centimetres. And we're going to find the middle of the Tetra Pak, which is in this case 7 centimetres, so that's 3.5. So that's the centre of my mouth. And what I'm going to do there, just to measure it accurately, I'm going to go about 2 centimetres either side. I sort of want this to be a little bit smaller than my mouth that I've made on there. So I'm going 2 centimetres there and 1.5 centimetres down. Things to look out for here is to just make sure that you're not drawing it too near to the bottom there. You want to have a little bit of space for your mouth to sort of sit up from the bottom there. So again, 2 ways of doing it here. I normally use a craft knife, but another way of doing it, if you either don't have that or you're a bit worried by craft knives, is if you've got a little posi screwdriver or a little bradawl, or even the sharp end of a pair of scissors, you just sort of carefully make yourself a little hole in the corner there, and then you should be able to get your scissors in there and you can cut all the way around. Don't worry if it ends up a bit sort of jaggedy and not straight and all that, alright? It doesn't matter because we're going to put the face on top of it. Now my face is quite a lot bigger there, so what I'm going to do is just cut cut out the corners. Another thing you can do if your mouth's got too big and you're a bit worried about box falling apart or something like that, is you can always, you know, make a sort of coloured extra bit of paper behind there. It doesn't matter. Alright, the important thing is you get your nice face that's going to fit over that mouth shape. Okay, there's another couple that I've done here. You see all different shapes. Doesn't matter too much, we're not going to see that. Okay, but we want to make sure the mouth on the box is big enough that the tongue can come out, but it's not so big that we're just ending up with a huge hole in the box. So now we can get rid of the sharp knives. Got my face. I'm going to make the eyes now. So I've just got a bit of scrap white paper there. I'm going to make a fold in it so I can cut my eyes at the same time. Obviously you can do these whatever shape you like, but just to make it easy, I'm going to make kind of egg shapes there. I'm cutting them both out so that I've got two eyes there. And then I am going to get some scrap paper, coloured paper. Again, I'm going to fold it so I can cut them both out at the same time. Pupil eyes. Sometimes I do sort of fancy little circles for these eyes and things, but all you can do as well, just to finish off the eye, little mark in the pupil there. So now I can just use my simple glue stick there to stick on my eyes. So now I've got my eyes, and what I'm going to do now is make the nose and the eyebrows. Now this is made kind of, it stands up. I really like, I'm a 3D sculptural artist and I like things that are not flat all the time basically. So this little nose and eyebrow sits up there above the face. So we're going to make that bit now. So I'm going to take my other A4 card, which in my case is red, so I'm going to have a nice contrast colour to the face, and all I need for this one is just half the sheet. So again, I'm going to fold it like a Christmas card, but this time I'm going to cut it in half, and I can use the other half for something later. So I've got my half of the card, and this time I'm now going to fold it again. So I'm going to fold it like a smaller Christmas card. Again, I need a nice quite sharp line there, so I've got a sort of little mini Christmas card there. And again, I'm going to use the folded edge, the centre edge. That's the important bit, because that's how we're going to make our nose and eyebrows. They're all going to be made from one piece. So again, I'm going to draw this in felt. Normally I would just do it in pencil, but just so that you can see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start about 2/3 up from the bottom of the bottom of my Christmas card, and you have to think that's the bottom of the nose. So I'm going to draw half the nose, and then I'm going to come up and I'm going to draw half the eyebrow. I'm going to have a nice curvy eyebrow, and it's quite nice at the top here to do a nice little curve on the eyebrow. Now adults, kids often find this concept quite tricky to start with, so maybe practice on some scrap paper first. A lot of them, they sort of draw all the nose and eyebrow, or not quite sure about the folding aspect, so it's a good learning technique, but maybe practice on some scrap card first. Okay, so I'm going to now cut out my nose and eyebrow. So I've got the little fold in the middle. I'm just going to cut around there. I cut out my curve at the top, and then when I open it out, I'm just going to use it that way up so you don't have the pen. You can see the 3D effect, so that's going to stand out from our it's going to stand out from our face. And you can either have it, you know, fairly flat down, or we're going to make it stand quite proud like that. And what I'm going to do before I stick it on is I'm just going to make the top of the eyebrows here, I'm just going to cut into them to give them a bit of shape and texture there. So you can experiment with a few different eyebrows and things here. I've got one here. This one, I've done something else. I've made some shapes at the bottom. I've got my eyebrows. They're going to sit, and his nose. They're going to sit a little bit above that. And I'm actually just going to cut just a tiny bit off the bottom of the nose there, just so he doesn't go over the mouth. Like that. So, you know, these things are not exact. The point of this is to kind of experiment, see what works for you. It's just card and paper, so, you know, experiment with a few different ones, see what you like. But this is essentially what my little nose and eyebrows are going to look like. So it's quite handy now if you've got the stronger glue. But don't, you know, if you only got the glue stick, it will work. You might just need to leave it to dry for a little bit. I'm just going to put a bit of glue on near the ends of my eyebrows. And these are the bits. I'm just going to carefully stick those down sort of towards the edge of the face there. So I'm not sticking down the middle at all, because I want to leave that out. And I'm just going to experiment a little bit, because it doesn't dry straight away, this, as to how I can make it flatter or make it more pronounced like that. And normally I would leave this to dry a little bit longer, but I'm just going to show you here. What we're going to do is I'm going to cut a bit of that off, and I'm going to bend it around. And that's actually got a bit of glue on it already, so it's actually fine. Again there, I'm going to bend it around. So you've sort of got two little tabs on the back there. And you've got your nose and your eyebrows at the front. So this is when you start getting to use your imagination, because we need to decorate it. I love lots of decoration. Obviously I'm a 3D artist, so I also like recycling, so I use a lot of kind of things that stand up from the face. Little flags, here we've got some question marks, some hair. You might be more into painting and drawing, so you could always decorate it like that, but it's good to give all different kinds of making things a go. So have a go. I'm going to show you a few different ways that I make little easy things to decorate. So as I've said, one thing that I use is these little punches, which give you some really nice colours for your decorating. But don't worry, if you don't have one of those, it doesn't matter. There's lots of ways that you can cut shapes by yourself as well. So I've done some little strips that we're going to use, and we've got some triangles there. I've made myself some question marks, because it's a head full of ideas, so we want to think, what can we put in it? Some ideas. And I've got some little kind of fringes here, and some sort of little banners and flags. So let's make a couple of those. So if I get a piece of, this is a bit of old magazine, it's quite nice colours on there. I think I'm just going to make that a little bit narrower. And all I'm going to do here to make my little banner is fold it up like a little concertina. And then right at the end, on the last bit, I'm going to cut the shape into it. Like that. And then if I just stick down the bottom bit, I get a nice piece of sort of shape and texture coming out of the face there. So I've got little fringes that I make. Again, it's just to give texture. So I'm going to use a very thin strip of sort of old paper here. And this time I'm going to fold it in half. I'm just going to make lots of little thin strips there. And actually I've decided that one's a bit too thick for me, so I'm going to make 2 instead. I'm going to cut that in half. What I can also do with the circles or with my other shapes is, again, if I fold them in half, I can then create some shape and shadow on my face. Like that. I think I'm going to do one more. Here's one that I did early for all of those of a certain age. And I'm going to make some hair. If we look at this one here, he's got, or it's got bits of old magazine writing coming out of his head. I think I'm going to make one like this with some nice curly hair. So in order to do that, I need again some scrap paper, and I'm just going to cut a rectangle out of there. If I find myself a pencil, do the old trick of rolling that up, try and keep them nice and tight. I get my lovely curly hair. I think he's just going to have some curly hair on the top there for the minute. Obviously you can go pretty crazy with all your decorations. There, and I think also we could do with some ears. So let's get some scrap paper again. I'm going to have some, oh, how about that? Quite like that. So again, I'm going to fold this in half. It always makes our life easier, and we're going to cut a couple of ears out at the same time. There we've got ourselves 2 little ears. Stick those on. You can of course add lots of decoration onto them as well. They don't just have to be flat ears. So let's add some more bits on there. Actually what we can do is curl those fringes as well, like that. And just keep going, as much decoration as you like. I'm just going to put a bit of decoration on its nose. So in order to do that, what shall I do? Here we'll do a little zigzag, I think. So I've cleared up my workspace, because it's always good every so often, and then you can see what you're doing for the next bit. And we're going to make the tongue now. So the tongue is a really long strip of paper. I'm going to make it from one A4 sheet of paper, but if you're at a school or at home and you have sort of bigger bits of paper, rolls and things like that, and you can make it out of a thin long strip, all one piece, much better, okay, because you don't have to stick everything together. Makes life a lot easier. but if you don't have a long bit of paper, you can do it out of an A4 sheet. So what we're going to do is cut it into strips, and we've divided the page into 3 centimetre strips. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 7 strips there, so I measure 3 centimetres at the bottom, 3 centimetres at the top, draw a line, divide it all the way across, okay? And then, this is where a guillotine comes in handy, but mine's in the other room, so I'm just going to cut them down. So if you're doing this from one large piece of paper, you just need a strip, again, about 3 centimetres long, and this actually works out, it's about 2 metres long once you've finished. But again, it doesn't matter. You can make your tongue longer or shorter. This is just quite a good length to get quite a lot of ideas written on at once without having to sort of keep changing the tongue. So I'm nearly done. I end up with 7 strips. Oops. Cut his tongue a bit. And then what you need to do is you're going to glue them all together to make one long strip, like I've done here. So the top tip here is you do need to, if you're making it not from one long strip, if you're gluing them together, you do need to make sure that these are glued really well, and that all the edges are glued up. So that means both sides, and it's quite handy to use slightly stronger glue for this one. That you glue both sides, because when you're pulling the tongue out of the mouth, if you haven't sort of glued it together sort of really well, his tongue gets stuck on the mouth if you're doing it from sort of lots of strips of paper. You don't have that problem if you make it from one long strip. Keep gluing those together. And again, normally I would leave longer, you know, leave these longer to dry, etc, etc, but we'll just get the idea now. Glue, glue, glue. So 3 centimetre strip, long as you like. This is about 2 meters long, and this is what's going to sit inside the little box and make our tongue to pull out. This is where we've got to get our thinking heads on, because we need lots of ideas, art challenges, acts of kindness, or maybe a little sport activity, whatever you can think of that would be an interesting idea for somebody if they pull this out, that's their idea. So for example, you could give everybody in your family a compliment, could be one. You could sort out and donate your unwanted toys. You could make a funny video to send to your friends and family. Smile and say hello to everybody that you meet today. Whatever you like. So this is a good idea to maybe have a think as a family, or if you're in a classroom setting, this is great in groups, getting people to come up with a whole list of ideas, and they can choose which ones work for their idea head. But of course, you know, what's going to happen is people are going to get these and pull them off, and then we're going to need some new ideas. So you can either repeat it for the next one, or, you know, think of some new ones as you go along. So here I'm just going to write one. I'm just going to write one on here. But what I usually do is I print them all on one sheet of paper and then cut them out and stick them on. And then you can sort of see them really well. Again, you've got to be really careful about the gluing though, that you do glue it down really well. But that's quite a good little project in schools or at home, practice your computer skills. But otherwise, equally fine, you can just write it straight on. So you want to write it nice and clearly. I'm going to say here, write kindness poem. Write a kindness poem. So that's my little written bit there, and I'm going to make a sort of gap, a definition before the next one, so that's where they're going to tear it off. So we're just going to do that. See, like that. So I'd write another one, make a mark, write another one till I've filled it all the way up. On this one here, I've got lots of different ones. So I just do that all the way along. So you could do that all at once, or you could have a little think over a few days, write some ideas down. There's lots of ideas on the internet. If you put in kindness ideas, random acts of kindness, things like that, lots of ideas come up to give you some thoughts to start off with. But it's really good to come up with ideas yourself. So this is when we can make we can put it all together. So I'm going to use the tongue that I've already got, because I'm not going to write all of them on there now. So I'm going to use the tongue that I've already got, and I've got my box Tetra Pak bit that I used before. So I'm going to need the strong glue for this one. Glue gun's also good. And all I'm going to do is put some glue on the front of this, just the front surface. And I'm going to just carefully position my my ideas face over the top there. And if we look at that from the side, there on the back, and you'll see the chin sort of sticks out the bottom, and that's because I really like to put these on, to put these on shelves, so they sort of sit out the bottom there. And then once we've done that, we can get our tongue, and all we do is we put that in the little box at the back, and you slot the tongue out through the front. Slot it out through the front, and you just have to be a little bit careful that you've rolled it up quite nicely, so that it can come out smoothly. And this is when you probably might want to check your glue joints if it's getting stuck. Just make your glue joints a little bit better on your paper. And then the idea is that somebody comes past and they pull it out and they tear off the first little strip, and that's their idea of the day or the week, something to go and do. So that's our ideas head. If you're making this in a school setting or a community setting, you could also do much bigger versions. So instead of using a little box like this, you could use a sort of shoebox size or something like that, and make everything a lot bigger. And then you could do it as groups, which is also it's a nice group exercise. So I hope you've enjoyed making your ideas box today. If you make them at home and want to send them any pictures to Outside Lives, that would be great. We always love to see what you've been making. And remember, use your imagination. This is just a start off. This is what goes on in my head, but we'd love to see what you do with them as well.